This is always, we are part of the same legacy and home. So, and it is always a two-way interaction, which I expect, so that I can also learn from others. It is not that I should be only speaking. So, I hope I am very clear and audible. Okay. And I understand that your group of participants have a different backgrounds, but mostly all involved in agriculture or have some connection with agrometeorology. Okay. So let me share my presentation. We will start with that in just a minute. And Dr. Chanda, how much time we have to end at what time? Okay. That is a dangerous situation. Then we can go on for long. Sure, sure, sure. Okay, thank you. Let me share my presentation. Fine, thank you. So, as Dr. Navasu says, we have been good old friends. He was in IMD. I was in earlier with Indian Space Research Organization, and then in between was also worked with National Institute of Disaster Management, and then currently with Indian Council for Agriculture Research and a premier institute, Indian Agriculture Research Institute. But we have been in touch for long, and basically I am a principal scientist agrometeorology with the Indian Council for Agriculture Research. So whatever work I have done, it has a touch of agrometeorology. And one of the areas where I feel I could able to contribute something for India is on drought monitoring and drought risk assessment. So I would be sharing my experience with background, theoretical background, and how we met with different challenges and how we overcame those challenges to do drought monitoring and drought risk assessment. So if any of the participants has any time, any questions, please stop me and frequently, very freely, please ask the question. If you have not understood, you need some clarification, because every question is equally important. It is, and please don't think that your question is silly or it is not important. Every question is important, and so please stop me anytime where you feel. And again, acknowledgement to South Asia Forum on Agrometeorology. Dr. Navasu, I think there is some other lecture also happened on drought or related to drought. Okay, sure. So, okay, okay, sure. So just a few background which you will find in any of the book on drought, or where it starts, that it says that drought is a recurrent phenomenon of every climate type, and it occurs from dry to humid climatic zones. So it is not that only the dry zones there are drought. Rather, I would say in humid and subhumid regions or climatic zones, the drought is more bigger problem, because in arid zone the ecology, the humans, the animals, the vegetation has some mechanism and adaptation to sustain themselves under very limited water availability. But under humid, subhumid conditions, their ecological components, vegetation, animals, microbes, they don't know how to survive when there is a deficiency moisture availability or rainfall. So, but please remember that it is not that only in desertic areas or dry areas or arid region the problem of drought is there. Rather, it is a problem of every climatic type, and more humid, subhumid region drought experiences, the problems are of much higher magnitude. Another important thing is that it is a regional phenomena. We do not say that drought has occurred in one field or one village. It generally occurs over a larger region, and the problem is there is still no precise and universally accepted definition of drought. It all depends on how people define drought. It all depends on what is the differences in region, their needs, from which disciplinary perspective you are looking at the phenomena. And that is why in literature, in discourse on drought, you will find different definitions, different criterias, different matrices to define how drought is, or to quantify or characterize the drought. But please accept my assertion that there is no precise and universally accepted definition. Whatever definition is defined or given, it depends on that region's needs, the disciplinary approach from which it has been defined, and how it impacts the different components of the society. But one thing is very clear about drought, that it how it starts. We don't know how it ends, but we know how it starts with drought. And that is that it originates with the deficiency of precipitation over an extended period of time. So, what you need is there has to be some deficiency in precipitation. It could be in terms of snowfall, it could be in terms of rainfall, and it has to occur over certain amount of period so that it starts impacting one or the other part of the environment or human society. So this extended for this extended period of time, that deficiency results in water shortage for some activity, or for some group, or for some environmental sector. So though we don't have a very clear definition of drought, we have some clarity on how the drought starts, how it originates. Another thing is, drought by itself is not a disaster, or it is not a hazard. It all depends on how it impacts the people, how it impacts the economies, how it impacts the environment, and what is their ability to cope and recover from that stress. So, just to give an example, that this winter season, which starts something around November and goes up to March, which has just ended, uh, our Himalayan region receives at least three significant events of Western disturbances, WDs. And that brings in what we call snowfall on the mountains in the Himalayas, and then rain in the plains of Haryana, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, and part of the Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. But this year, this winter season, which has just passed out, we really had no Western disturbance. And a new phenomena was heard, which was called snow drought, because it has not snowed. The snow didn't happen in the Himalayas, where normally we used to expect a lot of snow, and which used to be in a source of water throughout the year downstream in the plains of India. So this was a very extraordinary situation. And another extraordinary situation is, from something like 20th March onwards, we have received at least two already significant, or rather three significant Western disturbance events, and still the temperatures are much below normal in northwest part of India. So we have, during our December, January, or February period, there was no event where snow occurred in the Himalayas, and towards the end of March and beginning April, we had the events where lot of snow happened. So such kind of variability do happen. So what I say, that it all depends on. So now the people, I never heard of before that this term, but now people have coined the term for this kind of phenomena and calling them as snow drought, when there is a deficiency in snowfall in the Himalayan region. And that of course impacts some of the people, their activity, and they are not able to cope up with that deficiency, whatever impacts happen. And drought is characterized in terms of its intensity or severity. It is also characterized in terms of its duration, for how long it happens, and over how big area this drought event occurs. So these are the factors by which you can characterize the drought. The important thing is that, as compared to other natural hazards like floods, earthquake, landslides, cyclones, tropical storms, this hazard or this disaster is much different. First, there is no universal definition, but in case of flood or cyclone, we exactly know what we call as flood, what we call as cyclone. And it is the most complex and least understood of all natural hazards. Complexity, some we have discussed in our previous slide. And because it is a very slow onset and creeping phenomena, it means it comes very slowly. You won't know that drought has set in, the situations are now ripe. Only when its impact become omnipresent, when in every sector you start feeling the impacts, then you will say, oh, there is a drought, there is a drought. When uh, the when there is a shortage of electricity from hydrothermal or hydropower plants, when the prices starts rising and availability of food grains get impacted, then you say there is a drought. But this must have started few months back. So there is difficulty know its onset and its termination. As against cyclone, when it is make a landfall, when the area was flooded, you exactly know. And when the flood receded, or it came, the second wave of flood came, you know when it was or when it was over. In case of drought, this duration may range from months to year. We don't know when it starts. It comes slowly and it may continue for months or years, and we really don't know if it has terminated or not. Another bigger problem is that, and I hope you are able to hear me clearly. I need some response.
Yes, we can hear
Yes,
you.
sir.
We can hear
Yeah.
you.
And do my pace of delivery is okay? You can understand what I am telling.
Yes, sir. Clearly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Another bigger problem with drought is that its core area or center is not fixed. Its spread changes over time. Even its core area or epicenter may change over time as the season progresses. One bigger problem is that the impacts of drought are non-structural in nature. It is very difficult to quantify. So your yields may increase, yield of your crops may increase, your productivity of soil may go down, your yield of animals or cattle may go down. You may pile up some debt, and that your family's economic income would be impacted, and that may impact your next 2 3 seasons also. But it is very difficult to quantify. As against that, we know how many houses were damaged when the cyclone came. We can easily quantify how many pakka means the cemented built houses were damaged when the flooding happened. How many hectares of land was submerged. But in case of drought, it is difficult. So once you cannot quantify the the impacts, you cannot provide for the provisions of relief also, because you don't know how much damage had happened, how much I need to pay for that. So these all things are making it quite different as compared to other natural disasters. And one important thing is that the drought has cumulative impact. So if one season of drought is followed by another season of drought, then the situation may be very different in terms of its impact spread, as compared to if one cyclone has come and then next year again a cyclone comes. So I hope this is some background I wanted to give about what we understand about drought, what are the issues with drought, and how it is different as compared to other natural hazards. So, in such a situation, we find that a host of an array of definitions of drought exist. If definition exists, the methods to assess them also exist. So there are innumerable methods. You open up any journal, agriculture, forest, meteorology, natural hazards, environment monitoring and assessment, every issue you will find a paper on drought. Even on our Journal of Agrometeorology or our IMD journal Mosam, you will find in one or the other issue there would be a paper on some aspect of drought. So there are some conceptual definitions of drought. There are some operational definitions of drought used by operational agencies. And there are some disciplinary definitions of drought. But down the line, there is no one universal, single accepted definition of drought. Conceptual definition makes the people understand the concept and help in establishing the drought policy in a country. Example, we say drought is a protected period of deficient precipitation resulting in extensive damage to crop resulting in loss of yield. So it shows concept that drought ultimately is affecting it causes damage to crop and causing the loss of yield. There may be a state or there may be a region which may be defined drought as a protected period of deficient precipitation resulting in non-availability of drinking water to the cities or to the urban population. So it could be another one. So it all depends on what you want to convey in terms of drought. There are operational definitions where operational agencies want to say that drought situation, where what it is, how to define the drought, when to say that there is a drought, when to say it has started, when to say it has ended, how to quantify its intensity. So generally, these operational definitions identify the beginning, end, or severity of drought. It could be based on departure of some climatic variable from its historical average. Example, British would earlier used to say that in UK, that 15 consecutive days of rainfall less than or equal to 0.25 mm results in a drought. Or in case of Russia, it was period of 10 days. If total rainfall is 5 mm or less during their rainfall period, then they would call. Earlier in India also, we used to say when IMD used to define the drought or a drought year when annual rainfall is 75% or less than normal. So there is a 25% or more deficiency from normal. So these are some kind of operational definitions used by operational agencies to define the beginning and degree of severity. And if you are a meteorologist, you will define it from meteorological point of view. So you will only talk in terms of deficiency in precipitation. If I'm an agricultural scientist or a farmer, my perspective would be that I would define how that deficiency has impacted my crop production, my animal production. If I'm a hydrologist, I would look from the point of view how it has impacted the availability of water in the rivers, how it has affected the availability of groundwater, what is the deficiency in storage level in reservoirs. So it is from those, so we call them as a hydrological drought. Or if an agricultural scientist is looking, we call it as a vegetation or agricultural drought. A meteorologist is looking, he looks at and say meteorological drought. And many times they don't quantify and everybody calls it drought. So that is why confusion compounds. And nowadays, our socio-economic people, because ultimately it is the money and cost. So there is a socio-economic drought also we keep hearing in literature, in deliberations at different forums. And that is true when you look from the point of view how it impacts the socio-economic processes or systems like price rise, the indebtedness of the farmers, the migration of people due to ultimately non-availability of food or non-availability of work or failure of crops or failure of the of the livelihood systems due to prolonged period of precipitation deficiency. So there could be a socioeconomic drought. But the problem is all these different type of droughts, they can occur either separately or they can occur simultaneously also. So there could be meteorological drought and it could go away. A meteorological drought can develop into a hydrological drought if it has continued over a very long period, or for a medium period it can impact the crop production, so it could become agricultural drought. And all this may lead to even socio-economic drought. People start migrating, cattle starts dying, the price rise would be there, bank loans farmers are not able to pay out, and such and so on and so forth. There could be even, we had what we call farmer suicide also in some states. So these are all indicators. But such kind of situation could be separately or it could be simultaneously. But please remember that there are, for whole of this drought management, there is a natural dimension and there is a social dimension. So the drought can start with the deficiency in precipitation, and we can say that there is a setting of meteorological drought. And if continues for certain period of time and starts impacting your crop production or animal production, we say that it has led to agricultural drought. And if it continues over a very long period of time, it may impact your availability of water in rivers, reservoirs, and groundwater. So we move from agriculture to from meteorological to agriculture to hydrological drought, and ultimately they all, when agriculture, meteorological, other environmental factors finally start affecting your socio-economic structures, we say socio-economic drought may also set in. So as the time moves, we move from one type to another, or there may be overlap between them also. But please remember, as we move from meteorological to socio-economic, there is an increasing complexity of impacts and conflicts. And this increasing complexity of impacts and conflict, simultaneously, there is a decreasing emphasis on natural event. It means natural event is mostly related to meteorological and to certain extent agricultural drought. But it is the other things related to how you manage your water or natural resources, they become more important. Just to give you an example, if some of you know that we have in our northern state of Punjab, which we also called as a food bowl of India, it is having nearly 98% area under irrigation, very good, very plain lands with alluvial soils. The farmers are very tech savvy. It means they apply a lot of good seeds. They input water, fertilizer, pesticide. So it is a high technology input system. And in such a situation, the history has shown that whenever drought has happened, it means whenever there was rainfall failure during our Kharif season. I hope everybody understands Kharif season, the agriculture season, which coincides with the monsoon season starting from June, July, ending up to October or beginning November. So during that period in Punjab, the years when drought has happened in across India and there is a rainfall failure, our rice productivity goes up. So this is a kind of a, you can say, antithesis. We generally say there is a deficiency in precipitation, so it will impact the yield adversely. But what is happening in Punjab, because it is the water resources management in terms of availability of irrigation is assured. 95% more than 95% area, approximately 98% area is under irrigation. So it is not dependent on rainfall for its production. And what good thing happens? Because there is a rainfall failure, so you get lot of sunshine. So more primary productivity, more photosynthesis. Besides, if you don't have cloudiness, you have lower relative humidity, your diseases and pest incidents would reduce. So such a situation also do occur. So what I am trying to say that as we move from meteorological to agriculture to hydrological or socio-economic drought situation, the increasing emphasis is on how you manage your water or natural resources than on deficiency of precipitation or increase in temperature or increase in atmospheric demand. Is it okay? Shall I move forward?
Please, sir.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. So we say drought has many causes. Of course, it starts with meteorological conditions that could be mostly related to precipitation deficit, but there is a significant amount of how precipitation is distributed during the season. In 2012, I remember Northwest India, we had 24% monsoon deficiency in rainfall, but we had a bumper production. Even in Rajasthan, part of Rajasthan, which is a arid to semi-arid region, and also in northern western Madhya Pradesh, it was because the rainfall distribution was very, very good. Every 10 to 12 days, a rainfall event would happen. So there may be total amount of rainfall may be less, but its distribution was very even throughout the season. So it is not deficiency in terms of amount, but it is also how the precipitation gets distributed, which impacts the society, which impacts some system, your agroecosystem, your ecology, your environment. Besides that, the second important from meteorological condition is related to increase in temperatures or occurrence of heat waves. Anyway, from agriculture point of view, I have been arguing that I don't agree with IMD how they define the heat waves, because for agriculture, heat waves are having a very different connotation. But of course, increase in temperature adds to the atmospheric demand for the water and increase the evapotranspiration or evaporation from the soil, from water bodies. Then it is also the wind speed, which leads to again a large vapor pressure deficit and increases the evaporation. So this temperature and wind, they add to high evaporation or evapotranspiration demand and can accentuate the situation if there is a precipitation deficiency. So there is a precipitation deficiency and there is an increase in evaporation demand, so that situation becomes very bad. But the other important thing which which can attribute whether a drought or a deficiency in precipitation from hazard, it will become a disaster. That depends on how you manage your water in terms of how you make available the water, what is the quality of water which you make available, how much you are able to store and release, what methods you apply to use it, and what are the competing demands in a season from different sectors which come for water. Can any one of you tell? I don't know about other countries, I don't have much experience, but anybody from India, if there is a drought or deficiency in precipitation for a prolonged period, which is the first sector of the economy which gets impacted? If anybody can think of, and you can think anything, but can you guess what would be the first sector which gets impacted when the drought initiates?
Agriculture sector, sir.
Okay, one of our friends says it is agriculture. Anybody differs with him or agrees to him?
Yes, it is agriculture, sir.
Okay, to agriculture. Anybody? If anybody still has some other opinion, I would like them to think of. Because I say it is not agriculture.
Hydropower, sir.
Yeah, it is the hydropower. The foremost impact is in hydropower generation, and hydropower is going to impact every other sector. Your availability of power for your industry, your availability of power for irrigation and for other transportation and other activities. So it is the hydropower which gets impacted at the first, and then it has a cascading effect. Then, secondly, important is the agriculture, or it could be the availability of water for drinking, for day to day needs of the urban human population. So, please remember, because we had actually documented our whole 2002 drought in India. At that time, I was part of National Institute of Disaster Management. So uh, I know the first impacts in term on economy came in terms of hydropower. And besides water management, the issues are also related to socio-economic factors like access to capital and technology, infrastructures, policy guidelines, population, indebtedness, price rise, migration of people, and so on and so forth. So, if you have to come to our topic of drought assessment or monitoring, I think you need to bring in all these factors into account, or some of them into account. Then you can reasonably well can do drought monitoring and assessment. I have just this one slide which tells about how droughts are happening in India, and it is, as I told you, it is a recurrent climatic phenomena in India. In every climatic type, drought is happening. There are physical reasons, there are climatic reasons, there are socioeconomic reasons, and there are water management related reasons. But we say that nearly 68% of our, it has come down to something like 60% of our area is vulnerable on account of low to medium rainfall. And another bigger problem is that only around 40% of our 141 million hectare net zone area is irrigated. And between 1871 to 2015, India has witnessed what we call 25 major droughts or all India droughts, and five of them were very severe. The last severe one was in 2002. And state intervention is always critical to drought. It means how your country or your local government or your state government intervene and provide response to the situation. In India, in colonial period, we remember the famous Bengal famines. So there was widespread entitlement failures, which led to famines. I hope you all understand difference between drought and famine. So I'll tell you without taking time, if you are not yet clear, that drought is a temporary phenomena. When drought consecutively occurs over longer period of time, then it leads to famine. Famine is a situation when actually people, animals start dying due to non-availability of food. In Hindi, we call it as akal. So during colonial period, British invented the famine code, but post-independence situation has remarkably improved. We never have faced the famine kind of situation in our country. Rather, I think in whole of this region, we have not experienced that. And of course, thanks to our democratic institutions and the ushering of green revolutions, that situation has remarkably improved over time. Because we were talking of India, I'll take you back into from 1877 to something like to 2014-15. How different drought shocks has happened and how the country provided a policy response to that and the situation improved. It's interesting. So 1877, we had the Bengal famines. So current Bangladesh region was included in that. And the major policy intervention, first time the British government introduced what is called famine codes. It means if famine situation happens, then the government, whatever the local government and state government was there, it was mandated to provide some minimum food so that people don't die. So this we call it as is a kind of a a part of scarcity relief. So there was scarcity of food and you provide some relief. So it is a post event intervention by the state into a situation. 1965 and 66 are 2 years when consecutively we had drought. 65 and 66 in India we had all India drought, and 65 we had a war with our neighboring country China also, and we were just a new nation trying to cope up with a large population with very low skill power. Education was poor, and at that time the good thing was we had ushered in bringing in green revolution in India by using dwarf high yielding varieties which are responsive to fertilizer and water in case of wheat and rice. And also we established a institution which is called Food Corporation of India. So Food Corporation of India basically it procures the grains and store it in their silos, in their godowns across India. And then whenever there is a scarcity of food or food grains, it used to be released through what is called public distribution system. So I remember I was born in year 1966. So 65, 66 is that years. And I remember when I was a young kid, maybe 10 years old, I used to hold hand of my mother and stand in the queue of ration shop, a part of public distribution system. So depending on the number of family members you are in a family, you would be allotted a quota of how much sugar, how much wheat, how much rice, and how much kerosene you would be given. So that used to be the situation I remember. Thank God my kids have not seen that time, which we had seen, and that used to be a very regular. And there was no digital system; it was all used to be a manual system. So we used to go to the ration shop, and when we would say that this month we need this, you would say already your quota of wheat is over or your quota of kerosene is over. It means he has actually allotted that to someone else or has sold in black market. So that situation was there, but thanks to our predecessors, agriculture scientists and farmers of India, we had ushered in green revolution, and I think not India, across region it has happened, but an institution of Food Corporation of India was also established. So it was all related to what we call as scarcity relief, where the state intervention came. Then 1972 we had another major drought, and that is where we started with drought relief program by the government of India, and we started with what is called employment generation program. It means for some days in a year, every male adult member is given certain days of employment, guaranteed employment, so that he would able to earn some money to able to make up for the deficiency in his livelihood on account of drought. So this was started, and this till this day, this is program is going on in a big way in this country. So that is now not only related to drought, but it is related to other kind of hazards and disasters. So there is a employment generation scheme. Very recently, earlier it used to be called as Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Guarantee Scheme, and very recently it has been renamed as G Ram G, something like that. Then 1979 again drought happened, and what we started with and developing first time what is called crop contingency plans. So if you see, we started originally state intervention was in scarcity relief, it went to drought relief, and then it started in what we call drought management. So uh, uh, from what is called crisis management, this is all situation of crisis, we started shifting towards what is called risk management, because you are setting up your crop contingency plan, that if drought happens, what we are going to do, where all the fertilizer, what all new crops to introduce, how the farmers, if their crop is already sown, how they could be saved, and so forth. 1987 drought actually came, and it was a big part in central and part of southern India. 87 drought, and we started with, it was again a risk management approach, but here was more of water management by starting managing water on watershed basis. So a big watershed approach based program started. Then in 2002, when of recent memory, a very big drought happened. Here the number of dots are showing how many million peoples, 50 million peoples get, each round affects the 50, shows 50 million people affected. So deaths were, here each round shows 1 million people died, so 3 million people died, 30 lakh people. And 2002 was one drought which was very severe. But our GDP shrank by 2% of India. GDP shrank by 2%. So here we set up and invested in improving the early warning system, where IMD played a very big role, strengthening the monitoring system, the forecasting system, and so forth. Again, 2002-9 drought happened, and India brought in for the first time the drought management manual of India. It was a framework that how states should manage their drought, what type of policy interventions they should introduce. It was mainly, it is not a very for scientists to actually read it, but they can read it, of course. It is actually for the managers, the district collectors, the administration, the line department officials, what they should be doing in terms of preparedness, in terms of mitigation, in terms of early warning, in terms of monitoring, in terms of declaration. And I proudly say that I was the principal investigator of developing this first manual of this for India, the first drought manual for this India. So, and I was at that time part of National Institute of Disaster Management, and the project was sponsored by our Federal Ministry of Agriculture. And after 1965 and 66, India experienced consecutive drought again in 2014 and 15. And as a subsequent to that, we had revised this drought manual. I'll again come to you. We revised this drought manual in 2016, and also we revised our crop insurance scheme, which is still currently doing on a yield loss based insurance we started, which is called, in Hindi we call it as Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, or Prime Minister Crop Insurance Scheme in English. So you can see our country to a large extent has brought in large policy programs in response to drought event, a large drought event. So drought is very important. Until year 2000, all disaster management was actually with the Central Ministry of Agriculture, whether it is flood, whether it is cyclone, because it's, as I told you, it started with famine codes, and agriculture ministry used to provide the relief. And then when other type of droughts also started, other type of disasters also started happening, it was Ministry of Agriculture. There used to be a joint secretary, which used to be called a disaster or a relief commissioner for India. So he would provide money from the central pool to the affected states or to the regions. And only in beyond 2000, the portfolio of disaster management was shifted from the Ministry of Agriculture to the Ministry of Home Affairs, because in relief and response, you need intervention of paramilitary forces, because you have to rescue people, and you need specialized kind of people to provide response and relief, which Ministry of Agriculture was not institutionally built to do that kind of job. So this is about how important drought has been in this country. So shall we move forward, if you find it interesting?
Yes, sir.
Besides Urmi, I don't get response from others.
No,
Okay. Dr. Nabasu, is it okay? Shall we go ahead? Okay. Thank you. So, if you look at the whole process of एक lecture चल रहा है. So, if you look at the whole process of drought management, we call it as drought management cycle. So, there has to be schemes for preparedness and mitigation. Then, in season, you have to do monitoring. Based on that, you should do declaration. And if you find there is a drought situation, whether it is that of medium category or it is that of, excuse me. So in this drought management cycle, once you actually declare drought, whether it is of medium type of drought, it is severe type of drought, or it is a mild type of drought, you have to devise the response so that, and you have to implement schemes so that you can prevent drought situation in future. So in that, a very important component comes, that is of drought monitoring in season. So it is an important step in whole risk management strategy, because it provides you early warning. If you keep monitoring, you can tell that where situation is turning bad, where situation could become a severe drought, because it gives you a semi-quantitative categorized drought category, and you can timely declare the drought so that whatever your institutional mechanisms are there in terms of money, in terms of resources, it has to follow. So it can help in mobilizing your resources and funds in short term, and even triggers your contingency plans, because when the you might have prepared the contingency plans, but when you will trigger them, that depends on when you do monitoring and early warning of drought. So basically, drought monitoring involves gathering, analysis, and interpretation of observations using scientific tools. This is broadly how we define drought monitoring. A typical drought monitoring system, which is we say a composite drought monitoring system, would be, it should be based on data or observations, and not one type of observations but all type of observations, from meteorological observations to hydrological observations to agricultural observations, and including, if it is possible, include your socioeconomic observations also. So meteorological, like rainfall, temperature, even you can wind or any other indicator you can generate, which gives idea of atmospheric demand or water. Then hydrological indicators relate to surface water level and groundwater level observations. Agriculture, like how the during the season, how the crop sowing is progressing, what is the health of the crops. You can use even satellite images for that. So all this could be the type of data which you would be needing to actually establish a drought monitoring system. And you need to generate data. Once from each type of source of data you get, you need to generate an index which gives an idea of drought. And mostly these index would be based on anomaly, because when we talked of drought, we said we don't have a very clear standard universal accepted definition of drought. But what we know, that it is a deficiency in precipitation, how it starts. So deficiency in precipitation from what? From what normally we receive. So it means a drought index should be of the type where from a normal, it should able to see how much is the anomaly. So I hope You have heard of indicators like standardized precipitation index based on rainfall. I hope you all understand what is a standardized precipitation index or heard of it. I need some response. Basically, standardized precipitation index is a kind of an anomaly index. It is a Z score where the actual rainfall does not follow a normal distribution. Rainfall follows what is called a skewed distribution, like a incomplete gamma distribution is a skewed distribution. It means you have more number of events when rainfall amount is less, but there are very large number of very few events when there is a large amount of rainfall, like 100 mm, 50 mm in a day. That events would be very few and far. So it means if you directly use a indicator like deviation from normal, it will not work because this kind of uh, index work when your indicator follows a normal distribution, bell-shaped curve. So standardized precipitation index, what it do, it first fit a non-normal distribution like incomplete gamma distribution, and then it transforms into a normal distribution and then calculates Z variate, which is nothing but mean minus observation minus mean divided by standard deviation, and you take the mode value of that. So that becomes a standardized precipitation index. So it tells you with respect to mean how many standard deviation it is minus or plus. Minus means there is a deficiency, plus means there is a excess of rainfall from your normal. Similarly, if temperature and rainfall together, you can generate standardized potential heat index like SPEI, standardized precipitation evaporation index. Similarly, from surface water indicators, if you have the observations, you can generate a standardized surface water index. Similarly, from if you have measurements of groundwater depth in different wells over a region, you can generate a standardized water index for groundwater. Again, a variation, what is normally, and with respect to that, what is the variation. Similarly, for agriculture indicators, if you have a data on normally how much area gets sown by a particular date when the season starts, then you can look at that this season, is it deviating, it is less than normal, and do the reason is because of the deficiency in or arrival of monsoon or deficiency in precipitation. Or you can use satellite image based indicators like NDVI and generate an indicator like vegetation condition index, and which scales the health of the vegetation between 0 and 1. So if it is your health is coming below 0.5, it means the vegetation is under stress as compared to normally what situation is there. With respect to that, your current situation is poorer. So these indicators you can together merge them together by assigning certain weights. So you can have a meteorological drought. By assigning some weights to these indicators, you can have a hydrological drought. You can define by assigning weights to these and merging them together, you can generate an index for or category for agriculture drought. But ultimately, you should merge all of them together using one data analytics method, which is called multi-criteria analysis, and generate what is called a compound drought index, which can be actually used for drought monitoring. So it will tell that index value, if it is up to 0.25, you can say it is a severe drought. If it is 0.25 to 0.5, you can say it is mild drought. If it is the index value is 0.5 to 0.75, you can call it as a moderate drought. And if the value is above uh, 0.75, you can call it severe drought, or it is other way around. If it is less than 0.25, you call it severe drought. If it is 0.25 to 0.5, you can call it as a moderate drought. If it is more than 0.5 to 0.75, you call it as a mild drought. If it is more than 0.75, you call it as a normal situation. So such kind of how that index is related to the drought. You can define the ranges. And then a very important thing is that you need some kind of field validations also. And if this field validation does not, if your indicator is showing severe drought and in the field you are finding mild, or if your indicator is showing mild drought and in the field you are finding severe loss and situation, then go back and change your weightages in your multi-criteria analysis, again define the drought severity classes, and then can use it operationally for drought situation monitoring. So it is quite technology-based, scientific data analysis driven system, and this is what is being used. The only thing is that you can make it a totally data driven where you combine this index, or you can make it heuristic. Heuristic means some specialist actually, depending on the situation, can give weightage to different parameters. So I have visited and we have worked with the US drought monitor. So they bring in a lot of criterias and there is a lot of data which comes from crowdsourced data. It is observed by people and then it is shared. So ऊपर बैठती है, second floor पे. So there, a person, depending on his understanding and his expertise, he decides the weightage for different parameters and bring in a US drought report every 15 days or a week. So they are still using a human expert, or what we call it as a intuitive analysis to generate a drought situation. But now you can use machine learning algorithms also to combine these different type of indicators together to generate the composite drought index. In India, how we do the drought monitoring, I wanted to give that example. And it starts with our premier meteorological agency, which is India Meteorological Department. They are the first stakeholders which provide the information, and they provide what is called monsoon rainfall outlook and long range forecast. So by mid-April and early June, at first and second stage, IMD give a overall situation using ensemble statistical forecasting system that what would be the monsoon rainfall situation in the country. And then in June, they also give for different regions, and then they keep on improving throughout the season. And they also monitor the global indicators like El Nino, La Nina, and so Indian Ocean dipole, and give different probabilistic forecast for India and for broad regions. So it gives that before the start of the crop season of Kharif, it gives an idea that what to expect in this season. But as I told you, there is a lot of variability in rainfall, what it occurs, and how water resources are managed in different regions. So this is like they also share a extended range forecast of rainfall, and we are also receiving that from IMD for next 4 weeks. What is rainfall temperature forecast and updated every week, every 7 days. So these are the early indicators. And then at federal level, at the central government level, we have a what is institutional mechanism in terms of what is called crop weather watch group. So every week, Monday, 2:30, the crop weather watch group meets. I hope Dr. Nawasu might have attended many of the meetings of crop weather watch group of the central government. But such kind of crop weather watch group also exists at the state governments level also, especially in the states which currently are facing the problem of drought. So where the information from India Meteorological Department on what is the forecast of monsoon situation, how the monsoon is advancing, how much is actually rainfall realized as against normal, and then computing a 4-week standardized precipitation index, weekly aridity anomaly index, and such kind of indicators, which gives an early indication on the availability or deficiency in precipitation. Then we have our central Central Water Commission, CWC. It actually monitors the 91 major reservoirs of the country which are on the rivers, and they do weekly monitoring and share the data that how much water is stored into these reservoirs. As I told you, one of the first impact is on hydropower and second impact is on irrigation. So these impacts are very much driven by how much water as compared to normally is available in these reservoirs. Then from agriculture departments, from states, from different ICR institutions, they also, and state governments, they also participate and give information on monitoring of progress of crop sowing area. We have a specialized institution now under Ministry of Agriculture, which is called Mahalanobis National Crop Forecasting Center. They do satellite-based monitoring of crop growth, and that input also goes to the meeting of crop weather watch group. Then soil moisture, how it has been progressing, where all, and this soil moisture, nowadays it comes from a large number of stations which are manned by IMD, and more are under installation. I think 300 more agro AWS are being getting installed. Many have already been. So, and there we have soil moisture sensors where that data is also coming into the central pole and being analyzed to see the situation of soil moisture. And also by the end of the season, because this weather watch group meets every week, by the end of the season, they also see that how much yields have been realized as compared to normal, so that that situation could be used to take decisions on opening the imports or undertaking opening the exports or undertaking the imports of the some of the commodities related to food grains. Traditionally in this country, something I can say that up to 2016, what we actually declare in this country is called agricultural drought, because we are an agrarian country. We have a 50% of our country's area is under agriculture, 141 million hectares. So we have been, though there was a meteorological situation, but what is being declared that if this meteorological situation is impacting the crop production and there are agricultural losses, then you only declare the drought. So earlier the system was very, very subjective. In different states was following a different kind of, they were finding their own criteria, and there was no data observation based system. It was all a I estimate based, that how much loss in yield is happening. So we used to call them, like in Maharashtra, this system was called Paisawari, or in Gujarat, you used to call Anewari. Ana means a very small denomination of money earlier, which used to be in practice in India. In Andhra Pradesh started early using some kind of remote sensing data, and Chhattisgarh is one state which was using it only rainfall deficiency and declaring how much agricultural losses are there. So this because compilation of crop yield loss data was time consuming, it needs a lot of labor, and it all was very subjective, a loose system, and everybody was following their own criterias which were not objective, and declaring that the drought has happened. Even there may be a break in monsoon, they would say that drought has happened. So, and that is why time of drought declaration also varied from year to year, state to state. And if they needed money, they would submit a memorandum to the federal government. So there was no uniform format. There were no uniform parameters based on which they have derived the drought situation. And generally, it led to exaggerated claims by the state. And there was another bigger problem. Now, central government, how it decides whether we should give how much money. So they would constitute a interministerial team which would actually go to the states and assess the situation. Now, problem is this season is already over. I don't know how this central team used to assess how much damage has happened. So it means they would generally ask the people, either the civil society organization or the state government officials or line department officials in those regions, that what is your assessment, how much loss has happened. So everybody used to have their own idea. Like if you ask a farmer would say 80% loss. If you ask a line department official, he would say 20% loss. If you ask somebody, he will say in between. So there was no uniform criteria. And this was becoming a big problem in India. And so, and another thing is that, as I told you, the money flow from the central funds to the state and including state funds to the district is based on agricultural impacts of the drought. And in our federal system, agriculture is a state subject. So it is not in the purview of the federal government. It is in the purview of the state government, agriculture. So declaring agriculture drought is also becomes the purview of state government. So that is why you will see that earlier India Meteorological Department, Dr. Nabasu headed that. They used to declare drought based on meteorological parameter and even used to say a all India drought situation. But post 2016, they only say there is excess rainfall, there is a deficit rainfall, there is a scanty rainfall. They don't use the word drought. And this was taken, a conscious decision was taken that because drought is in India what we declare, and C is agriculture drought, which is a state subject. So let the term be used, if there are actually is there, by the states only. So it started with these all problems. The ministry in 2007 gave us a project that you develop a drought manual, which should act as a framework so that the state intervention could be made well informed and responsive to the drought situation. It could guide all the policy makers and administrators and NGOs to implement the measures for drought management, and there could be some standardization of steps and measures to be followed for drought management. And it also helped to promote policy and strategies that can prevent or mitigate drought and prepare states for better coping with drought. And this manual also proposed the drought monitoring cell at state level. And we also proposed how drought should be declared. So I was part of this activity. This drought manual is still available on this website on NIDM, 2009 drought manual. And we try to bring in some kind of scientific indicators for drought declaration, for drought monitoring, like rainfall deficiency, progress of area under sowing, a satellite-derived normalized difference vegetation index, and a soil moisture balance-based moisture adequacy index. So this is all we tried to bring in this manual. And in the framework, it said that let the states use them and decides on their ranges, that for what range they want to call it a mild drought, moderate drought, or severe drought. Because, India is a big country. We have a different kind of agricultural situation. Crops are varying. Irrigation availability is varying. So we left it to states that you do it. And we said that you can at least 3 factors may be used when you are declaring drought. And you need not to wait for that subjective system for drought declaration. Based on them also you can declare drought. So such kind of framework was made. And I think most of we have a bureaucratic inertia. So when new things come, the bureaucracy does not adopt it immediately. So this was 2007 we started. We did a lot of stakeholder consultation. We did a consultation with state departments in northern region, western region, eastern region, southern regions, took their inputs. You would be surprised then when we were doing in eastern region, in our eastern state of Odisha. So there, the state government officials, they wanted that in your drought declaration protocol, you should bring in the crop damage which is caused by the elephants, because there is large areas under forest, and elephants, by when the paddy is in mature stage, the elephants would come in and they would destroy the crop. So they said that you should include that also. So we had to convince them that this is a drought management manual, and drought, it is very clear that it starts with the deficiency in precipitation. So we cannot include it. So that was finally included in our crop insurance scheme. So damages due to animals. So what I want to tell you, that this manual was prepared, it was shared, sent the hard copies to different state governments, and it was hosted also on our Federal Ministry of Agriculture website and also on our NIDM website, but nobody took stock or took notice of this manual. So it becomes another activity, another document lying somewhere. So this is a sad situation. But then something different happened. You know, I told you that 2014 and 15, we had a consecutive drought happening after 2000, after 1965-66. So you can imagine 35 years and another 15 years, 40. After 50 years, India has faced a situation where consecutively 2 years you had a bad monsoon situation and there was deficiency of precipitation, which has impacted the people also, or especially the agriculture. So we had an NGO, a non-government organization, which filed a public interest litigation in the Supreme Court of India in January 2016, and it made the central government, our federal government, Ministry of Agriculture, and 6 state governments responsive to their public interest litigation, pleading before the Supreme Court that all of them have failed to do their basic duty of providing relief, response to the drought situation which has been faced by the farmers and rural communities in these 6 states, and including there was failure of the federal government. Okay. So this happened in January 2016. I am not taking the name of NGO. It is a big non-government organization in India and managed by few big lawyers also. But they filed this, and this public interest litigation was admitted by the Supreme Court of India. And then the hearing started on that. Plus, you may all be aware that you cannot simply file a litigation against someone. You have to provide some kind of evidence that yes, this situation has happened bad, they have failed in their duty. And what was that? So what were the evidence? So they provided a lot of evidence, because it related to evidences related to drought monitoring, drought declaration, providing that livelihood scheme, providing food through public distribution system, and so on and so forth. Even on mitigation scheme, we had irrigation scheme from central and state governments. So they provided a lot of evidence on that, but they also provided evidence on our 2009 drought manual. They filed that manual and saying that this is the wisdom of experts and wisdom of people who Ministry of Agriculture empaneled to derive a framework. This framework was prepared, it was published, but why it was not adopted? If this framework would have been adopted in 2009, the situation in 2014 and 15 would not have been that bad, whatever be the recommendation given in the manual 2009. So then the argument went on, and by the end of, I think, March, the Supreme Court gave direction to the federal government. So they admitted the bill, there was argument, and they found that the state government and central government was deficient, having deficiency in their duties to manage the drought situation. And then they gave many directions to both state governments and central government related to different programs, different interventions, what they should do, how they should strengthen the whole system. And they gave 8 directions on drought manual also. So they said that because 2009 versus 2016, a lot of technological changes happened. So they directed the Ministry of Agriculture that you improve this manual, bring in new technology intervention, and make things more objective. Don't leave things on the states to decide on. So based on our experience from 2009 to 16, we tried to fill in gap and brought in a new manual of 2016. So there is also interesting story to that. So you are finding it interesting how drought? No. Any of you can respond. You are finding it interesting, the storytelling related to drought? Okay. Thank you. So there were 8 recommendations which were given by Supreme Court by the March end. And as you know, the Ministry of Agriculture, they conducted a meeting by June, I think. And they, over 6-7 years, all the administrative people, ministries, they change, all joint secretaries, directors, they change. They even don't know new people come in. So they opened up the old manual and started looking at who were the people. And of course, by that time, I was with Indian Agriculture Research Institute. So I was part of ministry. So they could get hold of me. They could get hold of some colleagues from NIDM who were actually not part at that time earlier, but they were still there. Then Dr. K.K. Singh from India Meteorological Department, then from National Institute of Hydrology, then from National Disaster Management Authority, from Central Water Commission, from Ministry of Finance. So they started putting up and calling people to discuss how we can, based on the directions given by the Supreme Court, how we can comply to that. So there is a normal bureaucratic inertia. So June has gone, July gone, and nothing happened. So that NGO, they filed a contempt of court petition in the Supreme Court of India. So they said that in March you had given direction and neither state government nor central government has taken any steps on that direction. So this is a contempt of Supreme Court of India. So once that happened and that contempt was admitted, so you can imagine if contempt of Supreme Court of India happens, which is the highest judicial body in this country, then directly the Attorney General, the top lawyer of the country, becomes answerable for the central government, and the cabinet secretary, who is the boss of all the bureaucrats, his office also becomes active, that what has happened, and then including Prime Minister's office. So it becomes a big issue. And Supreme Court in August said to ministry related to drought manual that we want a updated, revised manual to be submitted to the registrar of Supreme Court by 30th December 2016. So this is a order and you have to comply with that. So this is how after August, few people were actually, I would say, in a lighter mode, we were hijacked and we were taken to a secluded institution and said, you sit here for 15 days and work on updating the manual in the directions of what has been given by the Supreme Court of India. So we did that work twice. That kind of thing happened because no manual you can simply bring in some changes. You have to consult your stakeholders, which are state governments. You also have to consult the other ministries which are in the government of India, like finance ministry, because ultimately money matter is there. You have to consult home ministry because relief response mechanisms are there. You have to consult ministry of water resources and so on and so forth. So with those all consultation, finally we brought in a new manual and submitted to the to the registrar of Supreme Court on 30th December. Of course, it was submitted by Ministry of Agriculture. So this new manual introduced newer scientific tools and techniques for drought monitoring and declaration. So we included new indices on hydrological indicators which were not available earlier. We also mentioned that what could be the data sources and what type of data is available. And we also taken care of asymmetry among states in terms of what is the irrigation availability is there, so that you can use different thresholds of indices for different state. A different threshold with state with high irrigation level, different threshold for a different state with low irrigation levels. Then we also mentioned what are different constraints if you use different indicators. And we provide a mechanism for quick time-bound sample survey for ground verification. As I showed you, that overall flow chart, that you need some kind of ground verification. You cannot simply do it based on data only. And then we define drought declaration category and timing. Besides that, chapters on drought preparedness and response, drought mitigation, and different newer schemes which were going on in India, they were also introduced. So this could be a one example which could be followed by others. And I'm happy to state that US Drought Monitor also host our 2016 manual. They have hosted this on their website. Actually, they look for drought, any learning examples on drought from across India, from not across India, across the world. So because we had a project with them, so they were knowing our work. So this manual also they hosted on their website. So this is the manual, which is latestly it was updated in 2020. There was some changes happened, but the basic manual was this. It is available on this website, and I will share you my presentation so you can have the link also. So in this, now for drought monitoring and declaration, how we thought of what we should do. So we thought of bringing in all those kind of data indicators which make the whole methodology objective. So we brought in rainfall, not only rainfall amount in terms of rainfall deviation or standardized precipitation index, but also dry spells which are an indicator of rainfall distribution throughout the season. So rainfall amount and distribution was brought in. Ground data available on how much percent area is there under crop sowing. So this kind of data is collected by state governments. So this data becomes an important input. Then how much is percent available soil moisture or moisture adequacy index, which is the ratio of actual evapotranspiration to potential evapotranspiration. So we brought in such kind of indicators into the policy. Then satellite derived crop health indicators of vegetation condition index based on normalized difference vegetation index, which is an indicator showing the greenness of the vegetation, or even another vegetation condition index based on normalized difference water index, which gives an status of water in the vegetation. So we brought in those also. And water availability in surface, groundwater or rivers, those indicators were also brought in into the drought monitoring and declaration protocol. And they were to be supported by some socioeconomic and collateral indicators also. So whatever I have explained you in my previous slides, that how drought to be monitored, how drought is controlled by different factors, we try to bring in all those into this monitoring and declaration protocol. So another important thing was there that, as I told you, that drought is a state subject. So this whole mechanism was to be done by state governments. So when we discussed with them earlier, we had put actually standardized precipitation index. So state government said, no, no, we would be needing specialist people, how we would be knowing to compute probability distribution, how to fit it and all. So they said you also include rainfall deviation, which is easier to calculate. You calculate the long-term mean and see how much deviation is there from that. So that is easy. Or who would be providing them the remote sensing based index? Who would be providing them information and where we would get it and calculate how much is the percent available soil moisture or moisture adequacy index. So we had put in what could be the sources, what data to use, and who are the institutions which could be involved in doing this kind of job. So state agriculture universities, their agrometeorology department, agronomy department, soil science departments, or the state extension department. So those kind of uh, things were also mentioned in the manual. And because this was to be done in a simplistic way, as I told you earlier, the typical method should be based on data analytics, where different indicators to be combined together by providing them weightages. But here we tried to avoid that and followed what is called a hierarchical decision based method. So we said that because our understanding is that drought starts with the deficiency in precipitation, so there should be some positive indicators and then there should be some impact indicators and there should be some kind of verification from ground. So in that hierarchy, there are three steps. There are two triggers. One is called trigger one, which is based on cause. That is mostly the cause is based on rainfall, amount and distribution. And then there is based on whether that cause or distribution has impacted some sectors like agriculture. So crop, soil moisture, remote sensing, hydrology based indicators would tell about the impacts. So if you get the impacts and then you get some kind of verification from ground, then you can actually declare a drought situation in this country. And I'm happy to say that 2017, this mechanism, because it was mandated by Supreme Court of India, now based on that, this mechanism was adopted by all across the states in India. And now current monitoring and declaration is done only by this protocol. So I feel quite satisfied that whatever our understanding, scientific work on drought, we did it. Some we could bring in into this policy document, and this gets actually implemented. And thousands of crores of rupees when drought happens in some states, they actually get released, and there are no complaints. Initially, for few years, there were issues for some of the states, and they brought in their issues. So we always used to meet and try to solve them. And so there were some changes, and that is why we had a updated manual in 2020. So it was the basic structure was 2060, updated in 2020, and 2025 we are again now working on improving or working on bringing some more modification based on the experience of the states which they have shared or by different departments when they have tried to do the drought monitoring and declaration. So what is there in this protocol? I would try to give it in more detail a bit. Though time is running out, we have to talk of drought risk. So we generally we classified the indicators in terms of different categories. What you call it as a normal drought, what you call it as a deficit, what is scanty kind of situation. So, or based on SPI and based on dry spell, how you would do if it is a irrigated situation, what dry spells thresholds you should use. If it is a rain-fed situation, what dry spell thresholds you should use. And then similarly, progress of crop sowing. If there is a 15% deficiency, if there is a 20% deficiency, more than 20%, 25% deficiency, what kind of drought situation you can call it. Or from satellite derived indicators also, whether it is a normal situation, moderate situation, or severe situation. So such kind of indicators, I don't want to go into that. Similarly, on percent available soil moisture, or moisture adequacy index. And we said to the state again that you can, to a slight extent, you can, depending on your local crop type, soil property, and in consultation with expert, you may decide on the range and class for moisture adequacy index and soil moisture, but not for the others. Similarly, for hydrological indicators, so the trigger one, which is a cause, which is rainfall based, it depends on rainfall deviation from normal or standardized precipitation index and dry spell. For trigger 2, which is the impact indicators, it is coming from remote sensing, crop situation, soil moisture, or hydrological. So it is based on all these indicators which we have discussed. And then some kind of field verification. So we said that some ground truth should be done in areas where you are finding moderate or severe drought categories. So you can do it in 5 sites, each in a particular administrative unit. And we said that states can choose either a district or a less than a district, which is called block, as a unit of declaration of drought, but you cannot go below a drought, because going to village would, you remember we said that drought is a regional phenomenon. So then if you take a village as unit, it is not really a drought, it could be something else. So in each of those administrative unit, choose 5 sites, and each of the site, 10% of the villages to be, you have to do ground truth. Then also look for the ancillary or collateral indicators on extent of fodder availability, prevailing prices, scarcity of drinking water for human and livestock, demand on employment of public works under public employment guarantee schemes. What is the demand? Is there is out migration of laborer? What is the value of agriculture and non-agriculture wages compared to normal times? How is the supply of food grains and tribe situation? So, but they were just told that you have to use it as an ancillary supporting indicators. So the declaration step was that if the rainfall deficiency or SPI, there is the rainfall deviation is in deficit or scanty category, or SPI is less than -1, and also there is a continuous dry spell happening, then drought trigger 1 would become yes. So here the situation is that rainfall deficiency amount is also there, and there is a poor distribution. So anyway, there is a cause for drought. The other situation is there that rainfall deficiency is in deficit category or scanty category, and SPI is less than 1, but there is no dry spell. So there is distribution is still okay. So only if SPI is less than -0.5, 1.5, or the rainfall deviation or deficiency in scanty category, then also you say yes. So trigger will become yes. So it will become yes in this situation and yes in this situation, else it will become no. And if there is a normal rainfall and SPI is more than -1, means it is towards positive side, still there is a significant dry spell is there, drought trigger can become yes. So we had given more emphasis to rainfall distribution than to amount. So once the trigger 1 is yes, then in the event trigger 1 is set off, means it says yes in step 1, you look for the impact categories. Does this deficiency has impacted your crops? So if, or related to crop sowing, related to crop health, related to soil moisture or ET, or related to water availability in reservoir or groundwater, if you can select any 3 indicators out of so many indicators, impact indicators, and if 2 of them are in severe class and 1 is in moderate class, you can declare that as severe drought category. But if 2 of the selected 3 impact indicators are in moderate class, you can declare it as a moderate, else it is a normal situation. So this is a very simplistic hierarchical decision rule based system which we proposed and which gets implemented easily, because it is understandable and easy to do it instead of putting in a lot of data analytics based method. So if trigger 2 will be set off only in the event of severe category or moderate category of drought is there. And we said that state, if their irrigation percentage in that administrative region is more than 75%, then they can actually reduce the drought category by one. So from severe, they can make it moderate, or from moderate, they can make it mild. However, in such a situation, the reduction in drought intensity from moderate to normal, the state government will be required to conduct field. So moderate to normal, if it happens, then there is mandatorily you have to do field verifications also. And how the field verification is done, that also a protocol was given, a app-based photo collection, location, crop parameters, and this is being implemented in India. The good thing is that, and avoid isolated small field in GT collection, that kind of thing. And we also said that if there is a early season monsoon rainfall, like in June and July, so drought can be declared even in August. So their only mandatory indicator is rainfall deficiency or SPI with dry spell. And you have to impact indicator is only the reduction in crop sown area or failed in, or what we call as prevented sowing. And there, the satellite-based indicators are not very effective because the crop has not established. The satellites cannot see the crop response, their greenness. So it is the other indicators which you can use if you want to declare drought early in the season, in the event of a monsoon season rainfall, or there is a great deficiency in onset of monsoon. So we said, we put in this that you should clearly specify which geographical extent and administrative unit are under which category of drought, moderate or severe. And we said that by 30th October, you have to declare Kharif season drought. And for Rabi season, you have to declare by 31st of March. So this became a kind of a deadline where they had to state have to do it. Otherwise, there were instances that even drought was declared 1.5 years after the season. So you can imagine 1.5 year farmers have already bore the vagaries of drought, their impacts, and there was no relief. So we authorized officials of concerned district to undertake relief measures in these notified areas, subject to, even if you need not to wait for the central government to provide some money. Use your own resources, even if it is declared in moderate or severe category. And then once, if it is of severe category, the memorandum, how it is to be prepared, we gave those formats, which indicators to be put, how it is to be submitted. Then what are the timelines that this should be submitted within a week from drought declaration? That interministerial team should be visiting in next week. 7 days, all information should be compiled. And within 1 month of team visit, the central government should decide whether they have to provide money from National Disaster Response Fund for relief for the drought affected people. And state government have to, within 1 month of receive of their central assistance, should distribute it also. So it is a total 2 months process from declaration to actually providing relief to the last of the mile, or last of the village, or last of the farmer. So such kind of system we had put it in this manual. Then we also, in 2018, we brought some guidelines for Rabi season drought declaration, because Rabi season is a very different kind of situation as compared to what is during the Kharif season, where the southwest monsoon is the main determinant of rainfall. So in Rabi season, we had 4 types of situation for agriculture. One is rainfall crops, which are dependent on the residual moisture from the main monsoon season. There are other situations where the crops are surface irrigated and are in the command areas of large irrigation projects. The third situation is where the crop is irrigated, but they are not in the command areas, but they are outside command areas. So their irrigation is through groundwater. And we do have situations in our three states in Northeast and in part of Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, where we receive northeast monsoon, like winter monsoon also. So we developed, because time is running short, I have to cover much. So for each of this situation, what could be the similarly positive indicator and impact indicator we define? Because for each situation, now indicators would be different. The impact indicators would be different and cause indicators would be different. You can refer to the manual if you are interested to look into details. So I don't want to go into that, which indicator to use. Like where the groundwater based irrigated areas are there, which are outside of command areas. So their crop zone area and remote sensing based indicators to be used. So details are all there. I don't want to go into detail. And so this is how we are doing a drought monitoring and declaration in this country. There has been some tweaking over the times, whatever has been put, and those have been put in the updated manual by 2020. And I hope this would have given you some idea that what is drought, what are issues with drought, what are the challenges in drought monitoring, and how to cope up with these challenges, and what have been our experience and learning in this country. Is it okay? Shall we move forward? And do anybody has any question at this by this time?
Sir,
Yeah.
you have mentioned that progress of crop sowing to monitor drought.
Yeah.
Would you
That
please
is one indicator.
yes, sir. So would you please discuss a little more about it? Is it only based on area under crop sowing, or also based on the fact that
What
water
happens?
requirements vary at
No.
different stages of crops?
No, it is progress of crop sowing. So what happens, our state line department, the irrigation department and state agriculture department, they every week they generate that how much, a estimate of how much is area is already sown. Whatever is our agricultural area, suppose it is, how much of that has been sown by say 15th of June, by 20th of June, by 25th of June. And based on historical data, they also know that how much by this date gets sown, so cumulatively. So if there is a deficiency in progress of area sown, that is taken as one indicator of impact. So it is not based on crop water requirement. The crop water requirement is taken here in index called Moisture Adequacy Index, MAI.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Now, sometimes when we had been interacting with various policymakers at central and state government level, you can imagine one thing which they are finding, because since 2017 till 2026, every year this has been used in Kharif and Rabi, and our southern state like Maharashtra, Karnataka, they have been declaring drought and receiving money when they declare it is a severe drought situation, money from central government pool of funds also, and they use their own pool of funds which are available at state level, like State Disaster Management Fund, SDRF. But they also told us that sometime when we see the situation, like the satellite situation shows something different, like they show it is a mild situation. The soil moisture would show a very severe situation. The hydrology will show, the indicators show a very normal situation. So we get confused that what is there. So we had an internal discussion And then we started that ultimately we need to move from this hierarchical system to a composite drought index, which I had shown you earlier. So, as a researcher, I also started this work on developing a composite drought indicator, where uh, the next slide would show that what we had done till date. So here the indicators, what is there? There is always, because you want to monitor drought in near real time. So data has to flow in near real time, and you should able to compute indices and generate the situation in real time. And because our interest is agriculture drought, so the unit should be a finer scale unit. So we put a challenge that can we generate a composite drought index, which is based on hydrology, which is based on agriculture, which is based on uh, meteorological situation, agriculture situation, at a 1 kilometer grid scale and every 15-day kind of a situation. So there we found that a satellite derived inputs become very critical, because satellites can provide you a lot of inputs, and they provide you in near real time, and they provide you spatially to the scale from very high resolution like 250-meter, 100-meter to for whole country. So we use those kind of inputs from publicly available satellite data like crop condition index, and we generated an anomaly index called VCI, trend adjusted. VCI is vegetation condition index, which is based on the greenness of index. We have a paper on what is this trend adjusted, which is based on a satellite called Terra, and it has a modest sensor, a 250-meter data. We generated the historical from 2001 to 21. Now it is updated up to 25. I think you would be knowing that now even graded rainfall products like IMD also gives. We had used at that time, we are using CHIRPS because it gives at 5 kilometer resolution scale. IMD is 0.25 degree rainfall daily. We have they provide up to 5 kilometers. So we use that data to generate a standardized precipitation index from satellite, and it has also amalgamation of ground-based data. So this is a publicly open source graded rainfall data. Then of course the situation of moisture in the vegetation, we use that also again from MODIS. Then we used a SMAP satellite, which is the follow-on to that is now ISRO NASA satellite. So we used the soil moisture product, which actually gives a product which is called a profile moisture product. We brought in our properties of field capacity and permanent wilting point and generated an index on soil moisture deficit. And also from MODIS, a MAI type of index, which is called evaporative stress index, which is again a ratio of ET by PET. Here the ET, actual evapotranspiration, is estimated by the thermal data at 500-meter scale. So we generated a historical data, generated the indicators from them, all in terms of Z scores. Then we standardized them to one scale, and then using principal component, a data analytics technique based, combine them. We did a validation with some kind of primary productivity data, that whether whatever we generating the situation, is it shows in primary productivity, which is again derived from satellite. So we could generate such kind of a composite drought index. So this kind of research we have been doing, that this yellow color shows mild, the orange color shows moderate, and then the red color shows severe situation, and the dark brown or this color shows exceptional situation or extreme situation. So it has gone this side. So this is extreme situation. So you can see like 2024-25 Kharif season, this is done at every 1 by 1 kilometer grid scale and every 16 days throughout the season. So it was, this whole area was under mild, rest was on normal. and then situation started becoming moderate, like in West Bengal of India and part of Haryana on the border of Bihar and what you say, Uttar Pradesh. Then this area actually got ameliorated, but the situation started turning bad in West Bengal. This is how then it again reduced, ameliorated to some extent. But then the southern India started experiencing late season drought for some time. So this kind of research we have been doing, this has been published also. And this we are now pitching in for ministry. So we would be doing pilot with some agencies to see that can this become a more uh, an acceptable method of drought monitoring and declaration for India. So this is still work in progress. We also worked on something called agriculture drought forecasting as a research project, and this is very important because one is monitoring, which is telling you the situation, but the real early warning value is in if you can tell, if you can forecast the drought, and that to agriculture drought. Please, these are two different things. Forecasting rainfall is not forecasting agriculture drought, because in agriculture drought you have to bring in the impacts. So we developed a system using machine learning algorithms where the irrigation situation, our composite drought index for current situation and 2 periods back, using ECMWF products forecast on precipitation flux, vapor flux, cloud cover, Tmax, Tmin. So we could predict that what could be the CDI for next T+1, next 16 days. Using machine learning algorithms, we did a lot of work. It is a very data intensive work, and we really were not having the resources to run such kind of heavy computations. We are not having access to very high power computing systems or supercomputers. So instead of doing whole India, we actually worked with only Karnataka. This is one state of India. And we found that like this is the observed composite drought index situation, and this is what we could predict. So more or less there is thing is okay, but there is always a difference of one category. Like this situation shows severe category, but here it is showing moderate category. Similarly, here it was showing extreme, it is showing moderate. Or here it is showing observed value showing large area is under normal situation, but here it is showing some under mild. So what we found that we tried different algorithms evaluated in terms of different skill scores, but our accuracy was hardly of the order of 70% for next 16 days. So this was a research we are trying to improve on, bring in new methods, and we need a better, looking forward to, we have actually tied up with, we have an organization called CDAC so that we can use their supercomputers to run such kind of deep learning models for whole India. So this is still work in progress. So can we establish a drought forecasting system? And there instead of ECMWF, we can bring in the IMD forecast also if it improves. So this is all about I wanted to tell on drought monitoring and declaration. But there is also important aspect on what is called a risk assessment. Drought risk assessment is a component of, is a combination of what is the frequency or severity of hazard, what is the exposure of elements like population, livestock, crop area to that hazard, and what is the vulnerability of, or what are the your internal system situations which make you getting impacted adversely by these hazards. So this is the basic framework which is given by ICC to do the risk assessment. And I can give actually a full lecture on risk assessment. Again, it is going to take 1.5 to 2 years. But I want to bring to your notice that if you want to do drought risk management, there are 3 broad steps. You have to do risk identification. Once you have done risk identification, you have to take measures on risk reduction. and even you can take measures on risk transfer. So in risk identifications, you have to see historical impacts of disasters. In our case, it is drought. You have to do data analysis to see what is the changing trends, where the drought is becoming more intense, where drought is becoming less intense. What is the vulnerability of the systems where even a mild drought or a moderate drought can create more impacts, and where the systems where even severe drought may not be able to cause any impact or cause minimal impact. So quantification of vulnerability. So based on that, you can do a risk quantification. For risk reduction, you have to do sectoral planning in short and long term, early warning system, preparedness planning like crop contingency plans, water availability, and of course, a lot of education, training, and capacity building activities. And then spend and put in different financial tools like crop insurance, animal insurance, weather derivatives, catastrophic bonds. In India, we don't have yet catastrophic bonds and weather derivatives, but these kind of instruments are available in the Western developed world. So I would like to take you to this particular website. Some of you may be aware that with our Borlaug Institute for South Asia, we have developed the Atlas of Climatic Risk and Adaptation in Agriculture. And for India part, it is hosted on my lab website. My lab is called CREAMS. I think Dr. Chattopadhyay also started developing a CREAMS system, if I remember correctly. Dr. Chattopadhyay. But anyway, I could take it forward. So we have a CREAMS Center for Consortium for Research on Agroecosystem Monitoring from Space. So I'll take you to this website to show you how we have done climatic risk and adaptation option in Indian agriculture. But like this Indian Atlas, we have an atlas for Bangladesh, we have an atlas for Sri Lanka, we have an atlas for Nepal also, and they are hosted by their respective country organizations. So shall I stop this and take you to this website? Because I don't know, people also have their own fatigue. We have already from 1:30, it has come to 3:40. What do you say, Dr. Chattopadhyay? Shall we continue for another 15-20 minutes? Thank you, thank you. I'll just stop it and go to uh, this website. So are you able to see that? Because I have to go to, so if you click on explore data, so like this is for, you will also have for Nepal, for Bangladesh, for Sri Lanka. So you can actually, this is whole country it gives, you can actually select any of the state, like I can select some western state of Gujarat. So it has selected the Gujarat state. And if you are interested only in a particular district, you can select that district. So it will take you to that district only. So analysis is available from state to country level. So I'll just put it on state. Now you can choose on, I'm skipping this for the time being, this particular tab. I don't know, you are able to see my switch to livestock is there. So I'm skipping that. And here what you are showing on the top, if you see, it says India, pixel level and cereals. Here the commodity is wheat. So whatever color you are seeing in India, it shows the area in a grid, how much area is under wheat. So wherever darker color is there, if you see this region, it means there is more wheat is under uh, uh, in this grid, and wherever the color is lighter and wherever there is no color, it means wheat is not grown in this country. So first and foremost is for all the commodities which we have worked on. Uh, uh, yeah, Nepal we can show. I have to go to a different website. This is for India. This is the India website, but that is a different website for Nepal. But similarly for Bangladesh also. So you can do a pixel level and you can do a district level. You can choose any one of the two. So you can do a district level assessment later on, or you can do pixel level. So I am basically a remote sensing also. I have done a lot of work. So our interest is always grid or pixel level. Then you can choose the commodity on which you are interested. So if you are interested in rice, so this is commodity specific climate risk assessment. So now the rice map of India has come up, and this is not district scale, this is grid scale map, because here our analysis skill is commodity specific and pixel. So commodity, you can, if you choose maize, so this is kharif maize, wherever, and this baseline is your current. If you, I don't know, you are able to see that there is a baseline, say 2000s. So this is your current situation, and then there is climate change scenarios of 2050 and 2080s. But of course, wherever the current crop is there, the same we assume is not going to change in 2050 and 80. We assume that same crop is going to be there. Or you want to see sorghum, so it will show where the sorghum is grown, which all areas there is a strong Maharashtra, northern Karnataka, part of Tamil Nadu, part of Andhra, Telangana. Even you can go to pulses. So this is chickpea area. So this is where all the chickpea, these are the typical places where there is a lot of area under chickpea, pigeon pea, lentils. Some of them we could not do yet, like black gram, green gram, but soybean. So where all soybean is grown in India is in central India mostly. Or rapeseed mustard is from west to east India, up to West Bengal, Assam, or groundnut. So I think this is first and the foremost data product which will provide you a gridded distribution of different crop type across the country. Now I'll go back to that. So there are 16 crops yet available, and you can, instead of crop, you can look at livestock also. So livestocks which are available, if you look at the commodity, these are cattle. So this is the cattle distribution throughout the India. You can choose it to buffalo. So it is how buffalo is distributed. You can choose to pig. So no, this is average of the current situation. This is average. Yeah. But important thing is you can actually download this. You can download as an image if you want to put it in your presentation, or if you want to use it in your GIS, you can download as a GeoTIFF. So, this for crop distribution is latest 5 years. Animal also. So this is from census data, and then a lot of modeling has been done to disaggregate the district scale data to the finer grid scale data. Yeah. And so when I saw these maps, now it gave me a real joy that you can look at and see first time where all chicken is dominating in my country. So similarly, it is for other countries, which has been done. So you can zoom in actually every place. You can zoom in or you can select a particular district. Okay. So now I'll go back to crops because I'm not very comfortable with livestock. I understand much less throughout the. Now comes his climatic risk. So it is the same framework if you see climatic hazard, exposure, it means how much area, and vulnerability. So all those components which contributes to vulnerability, which contributes to exposure, and which contributes to climatic hazards, they have been calculated. Suppose for cereal wheat, now important thing is it is commodity and commodity specific hazards. Like terminal heat is a hazard for wheat only. It does not, this is not a hazard for rice. So it will show terminal heat is where of medium hazard, where it is of high, and where it is very high, where it is very low, low. And here in the bottom, it shows how much area of that particular crop is under this category. And how many number of rural households are under this category. And then how this situation, the terminal heat in terms of its intensity and frequency. You only want to see intensity, you can do that also. But here this hazard is computed in terms of both intensity and frequency. And how this is going to change in future. 2050 scenarios under SSP 8.5. You can choose SSP to 4.5 also. I hope many of you are aware that there are different shared socio-economic pathways on climate change, scenarios of CMIP 6. So they have been done. So here it does not change. This is the baseline. But in the second window, the second map, this will, and the third map, it will change what will happen in 2050s and 2080s. So you can see the terminal heat is going to strengthen and becoming very significant in large number of a large area of wheat. And you can not only look at absolute values, you can look at change from the baseline. So here it will directly give you an idea that this change would be a moderate increase, moderate decrease, considerable decrease, or considerable increase from baseline. So this visualization would directly provide you a first-hand information. You can take some kind of decision. And it is mostly, we have made it for policymakers and scheme implementers. So anybody of you has some question at this point of time, we can go further. Can you repeat your question, Dr. Chattopadhyay? Yeah. Yeah. We are using a hierarchical method instead of principal component analysis. But that comes when we come to risk. This is only hazard. So in hazard, what we have done, it is based on the temperature, and the temperature thresholds would be different for different regions. So if I take days to frost, so it would be only in the hilly regions. So you will see it would be coming somewhere in hilly regions. If you go to crop water deficit index, it would be coming, and it takes into, this is where it is based on rainfall temperature. So a large area is actually under hazard on crop water deficit index. But it may not come in risk because large number of area has a assured irrigation also. So this is exposure we have already seen. Then vulnerability, where is the irrigation? So bringing these gridded data on irrigation. So you can see mostly very high irrigation in all this area where the wheat is grown. What is the volumetric water holding capacity of the soils? What is the income of the people? So it adds to the vulnerability of the rural communities. So there also where there is a very low income, where there is a very high income, where there is a moderate income, how many number of rural households are there, and how much area of that particular crop of which you are of that commodity. Then rural infrastructure in terms of roads and electricity. So we had, there is a big team of 50, 60 people and led by Borlaug Institute, but we had put a lot of science in bringing coarse data to a final scale data, even on socio-economic development, which is based on income, education and health of the population. So combining them, and as Dr. Chattopadhyay was asking, how you combine them. So combining is in terms of vulnerability index, exposure index, hazard index, or risk index. So there we use hierarchical data analysis technique instead of a principal component analysis. So here it shows that overall climatic risk, where it is very high for wheat, it is actually medium for most of the area. All this green area is having low. There is no area which is having very low, and there are certain pockets which shows very high. And if you want to combine all these hazards, heat, terminal heat, high temperature induced pollen sterility, days to frost, untimely rainfall, crop water deficit, you can look only at hazard index. So it is basically a hazard type of. So all these area climatically is under lot of hazard. There is a very high hazard, but risk is not there. Yeah. Groundwater we have not put in directly, but in terms of irrigation, it has come. Because groundwater ultimately for agriculture availability of irrigation. But the groundwater exploitation has not been taken as an input. Now, you can also look at how the climate change is impacting the productivity in 2050s and 2080s. Or it can impact the resilience of the system. So, how it is computed, you can actually, resilience is basically the yield stability over years. And it is measured as a function of variance of the yield over the years. So you can see that resilience is very low here, and it is by future it is going to increase in this area, and all this area would be under very low resilience. And even how it is impacting the value of production. So there is productivity and value of production. Value of production is in terms of US dollar per hectare at 219 prices for a particular commodity. So, and actually there is a lot of, if you see use cases, resources, you can read, there is a lot of help how this thing has been done. But we have gone in this project one step ahead. So people generally work with assessing the vulnerability, resilience, or risk. We have gone that what should be the adaptation options to mitigate these risks. So is early sowing is an adaptation option which works for wheat? Yes, early sowing would be it would be of medium land climate suitability in all this area of Gujarat, part of Madhya Pradesh or Maharashtra. It would be of low suitability in Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh. How about, this is land climate suitability, but you can also look at its gender suitability for early sowing. So early sowing has no impact, gender has no impact. But does it provide yield benefits? Early sowing? Under current situation, there is a rather early sowing, if you do in this area, there would be a medium loss. Only in this area, you would be having a medium gain. But this early sowing is economically viable, this technology? Anyway, early sowing, economic viability, there is not much an issue. But still, it would be its economic viability is very low here and its economic viability is very high. And this is the area where it is unsuitable at all. And how it is going to happen under future climate scenarios. So you can choose any other fertilizer technology like precision fertilizer management, water management, crop insurance. So this I would request that for your own country, visit this atlas, look at the data, how data, even all hazards you want to look at one place, you can look at one place. Heat stress, terminal heat, high temperature. You can look at use cases, you can look at the resources, and you can. So, Dr. P.K. Agarwal is the main lead who has led this project. And I think with this, I'll stop. I have taken a lot of time, all of yours. And if you have any questions, we can take it up. Yeah, I can take another lecture on risk assessment also. We can think. Yeah, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yes. I think first and foremost, if they have access to any of the uh, uh, administrative officials, they should at the first moment